در شمال ایران پدافند میکنیم.
Forcing Ukraine to launch a ship attack. They also got in touch saying that no, this was a mistake, we made a mistake. Well, we are currently investigating because we are prepared to strike 3 points in Ukraine.
Did Iran call off planned strikes on Ukraine at the very last moment, just as its forces were reportedly ready to attack? Iran now claims it was only minutes away from launching strikes on Ukraine, but says something unexpected forced a sudden change of plans. Were Mojtaba Khamenei's reported strike plans already in place before Ukraine narrowly avoided an Iranian military response this time? Tehran claims it deliberately spared Kyiv for now, while warning there may not be a second chance if tensions escalate again. After months of confrontation with the United States, is Iran now shifting its strategic focus toward Ukraine, as claimed by a senior advisor? Mojtaba Khamenei's advisor claimed on August 3 that Iran had prepared plans to strike 3 locations in Ukraine before the operation was halted. Mohsen Rezaei claimed Iran's armed forces had completed operational planning and were ready to act before the planned strikes were suddenly called off. Rezaei disclosed these details during an interview broadcast on Iranian state television while discussing Iran's recent military and diplomatic decisions. The senior Iranian official claimed the planned strikes were cancelled after what he described as an apology from Kyiv, without providing further details. Iran did not reveal the locations of the 3 Ukrainian sites it claimed had been selected as potential targets for the planned operation. Rezaei also said Iran would not allow ships to use the Strait of Hormuz outside navigation corridors designated by Tehran. The advisor warned that any naval vessel using what Iran considers an illegal route through the Strait of Hormuz could face military action.
The wave-like attacks became more precise and intense. Missiles and drones were launched toward the U.S. base to such an extent that Kuwait was turned into ruins. Most forces have been displaced from there. In Erbil, more than 40 to 50 B-52 aircraft had arrived, and many forces were moved out of Erbil. More importantly, the CENTCOM command, which was in Qatar, first moved to Jordan. We also hit Jordan severely, so the commander moved from Jordan to Israel. What does this mean? It means that the apparatus for an imminent battle is being set up so that when they come to the Strait of Hormuz, they can command and provide support from nearby, both command and support for targeting operations in the Strait of Hormuz. Now there is no ceasefire, but our attacks have meaning. For example, we will by no means allow a second corridor to open in the Strait of Hormuz. Even if they bring an aircraft carrier, we will hit the carrier. If they bring military forces, we will hit them. For now, we threaten the ships not to go. Fortunately, many ships listen to our threats and turn back, and we do not engage. But some, who are clearly under complete pressure from the Americans, come. Well, they sustain some damage, and then they turn back themselves. I heard that yesterday, apparently, Mr. Trump said, we had an operation larger than World War II. His reference is to the very thing I am talking about. Yes, you're dreaming, Mr. Trump. You were in a dream and a fantasy. But why wasn't it implemented? Why didn't your people set foot on the ground? No, I cannot say it has been completely ruled out. But firstly, it has become very weak and the probability has decreased. Secondly, even if it is carried out, it will be limited. For example, in the form of a raid. Forcing Ukraine to launch a ship attack. They also got in touch saying that no, this was a mistake. We made a mistake. Well, we are currently investigating because we are prepared to strike 3 points in Ukraine. However, after they said it was a mistake, since we are not truly seeking to expand the war and we do not want to incite warmongering. Trump's third war was because they said, we will open the Strait of Hormuz, go in and seize Iran's oil and gas, KAG, and so on. In northern Iran, we deploy air defense. There are only a few bridges and roads leading from north to south, most of which pass through highlands. Therefore, we take Iran's oil and gas, and the management of the Strait of Hormuz falls into our hands, removing it from Iran's control. Now, would the world tolerate this? Would even the Europeans tolerate the global economy's choke point being in America's hands? Would China tolerate it? This itself could have been a catalyst for World War III.
The remarks come as tensions remain high despite the reported collapse of the US-Iran Peace Memorandum of Understanding. The claim follows Iran's accusation that Ukraine was responsible for an attack on an Iranian commercial vessel in the Caspian Sea. Tehran said the July 25 attack killed one crew member and injured several others, according to Iranian media reports. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi later told his Ukrainian counterpart that Tehran expects compensation over the reported attack on the commercial vessel. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha held what he described as a frank phone conversation with his Iranian counterpart on July 28. The call followed Iran's accusations that Ukraine attacked an Iranian commercial vessel in the Caspian Sea. Kyiv maintains that its July 25 drone operation targeted Russian vessels allegedly transporting military cargo. Ukraine insists all of its military actions are focused solely on defending itself against Russian aggression. Sybiha stressed that Ukraine never intended to target civilian ships or innocent civilians. Andriy Sybiha said, and I quote, "I called Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi for a frank conversation. Diplomacy is about direct conversation, even when it's difficult. I stressed that our goal is to avoid unnecessary escalation. I reiterated that all of Ukraine's actions are aimed solely at defending our country from Russian aggression and never intended to target civilian vessels or people. This is also true with regard to Iran's statements about their national who died and a civilian vessel that was targeted in a recent incident. Our goal is to counter Russian aggression, which is the root cause of all incidents, and it is Russia who bears full responsibility for all provocations and casualties. I emphasized the necessity to refrain from any escalatory steps, as well as to end any support for Russia's war against Ukraine. This war is illegal and it must end. Our position remains unchanged. Europe and the Middle East deserve stability, security, and peace." Unquote. Iran says one of its commercial vessels was struck, leaving one seafarer dead and 3 others injured. According to Abbas Araghchi, Ukraine assured Tehran that the attack on the Iranian vessel was unintentional. Iran's foreign minister said Tehran also seeks to avoid escalation despite the latest incident. Abbas Araghchi said, and I quote, "Was assured by Ukrainian FM Andriy Sybiha that the attack on an Iranian ship was unintentional and Ukraine seeks no escalation. Iran does not seek escalation either, but made clear any attack on our citizens or interests is unacceptable. There must be restitution for losses." Unquote. Araghchi reiterated that attacks on Iranian citizens or national interests will not be tolerated. The diplomatic exchange comes amid growing tensions over allegations that Iran has supported Russia's war effort. The phone call marks one of the rare direct diplomatic contacts between Kyiv and Tehran in recent years. The conversation took place while President Zelensky was meeting US President Donald Trump in Washington. It also followed remarks by Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Barkai condemning what he called the Trump-Bibi-Zelensky triangle of evil.
We currently have no negotiations with the United States. The negotiations we are having, which may sometimes be interpreted differently, are the negotiations we have with Oman, focus on creating the necessary arrangements regarding the Strait of Hormuz. What currently exists cannot be called a ceasefire. The fact that the atmosphere has been calmer over the past few days is a result of the prudence of the armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran, who are always vigilant. Certainly, any action taken through the United States will definitely be met with our reciprocal and decisive response, as you have witnessed over the past 2-3 weeks. While the opposing party is engaged in harmful actions and aggression against Iran, our focus is on defense. Regarding the points mentioned, yes, mediators may convey messages from the American side to us concerning current developments in the region, but at present, we have no negotiations with the American side. By this action, they attempted to put on a show for those they consider their true masters. Nevertheless, at the end of the day, you can simply say that this gathering, the meeting of Zelensky, Netanyahu, and Trump, essentially constitutes the formation of a triangle of evil. Such triangles have decidedly never served international peace and security. On the contrary, they have always been destructive and destabilizing. Certainly, all parties who consider themselves in some way supporters and backers of the Ukrainian regime must be held accountable in this regard. Essentially, the behavior of the president of Ukraine is reminiscent of the behavior of the anarchists on the eve of World War I, who carried out theatrical and very dangerous actions whose consequences engulfed all of Europe. We stated from the beginning that we have no interference in the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. This action by Ukraine was both an absolutely illegal and unjustified act contrary to the UN Charter, and a dangerous adventure that will certainly not go unanswered by us. Zelensky's superiors must certainly both control him in this regard and be careful, as the actions of the Ukrainian regime can have repercussions that affect various parts of the world. Bulgaria's decision-makers must be held accountable for this unjustified and dangerous decision, which could practically reduce their country to the level of an accomplice and collaborator of the United States and the Zionist regime in a military aggression against Iran.